A compressor is a volume adjustment, and that's important to remember. The idea is it's listening to your audio and it goes, hey, it got too loud right here, I better turn it down. That's what compressors are doing. They're just turning down the volume when it's getting too loud. The way it does that is it has something called a threshold, and it says, hey, whenever audio gets louder than this threshold, I'm going to turn it down. If the audio is staying below the threshold, the compressor is not going to do anything. But if it gets above the threshold, it's going to start turning it down. The first setting you play with is called the attack time. That's how fast it turns it down. So if you have a fast attack time, audio comes up and it goes, oh, it's loud, I'm going to turn it down really quick. If you have a slow attack time, audio goes up and then it goes, I'll turn it down. The second function is called release, and that's how fast it's turning the volume back to where it was. So if you have a fast release, it will turn the volume down and then it will turn the volume right back to where it was when the audio gets below the threshold. If you have a slow release, it will turn the volume down and then slowly bring it back up to where it was. That's what attack and release times mean. The ratio is how much do I turn the volume down by? And it's a little tricky to understand. So let's pretend we had a ratio of 2:1. That means when the volume of the audio goes over the threshold by 2 dB, the compressor will only let 1 dB out. So I've got the audio, it goes over, I'm going to bring it, it went up by 2 dB. My output from the compressor will only be 1 dB out. So it's half of the volume over the threshold. So it's half of the volume over the threshold. If I had a ratio of 4:1, that means that the volume has to go up 4 dB over the threshold before the compressor will let 1 dB out. So you can kind of see how the higher the ratio, the less volume you're letting out over the threshold. So if you have a 10:1, that means that the volume has to go 10 dB over the threshold before the compressor will let 1 dB out over the threshold. And 100:1 basically means you have to have 100 dB of volume over the threshold before an extra dB goes out. And that's usually what you call a limiter versus a compressor. One of the definitions of limiters is they kind of limit the amount that can go out. Some digital compressors have what's called a look-ahead function. That means it actually looks ahead and says, oh, I see that the volume's about to cross the threshold, so I'm going to preemptively turn down the volume before it gets there. It can be really handy in some situations, but in other situations it can make audio sound weird with certain instruments. I'll demonstrate that in a bit. The makeup gain is after I've been bringing the volume down from my compression, the track is going to sound a little quieter because I'm bringing down the volume every time there's something over the threshold. So the makeup gain is just bringing up the volume of everything after the compressor's done its thing to kind of make up for that volume adjustment. So it will bring up all the quiet parts too. And that's important to keep in mind because when you're bringing up everything after compression, that means you're bringing up your noise floor. So if you have a lot of noise in your audio, every dB of compression means an extra dB of noise in the long run because of that makeup gain. So really pay attention to what you're bringing up when you bring up that makeup gain. Have some fun with it.